Thank you, Kevin. That was beautiful. Good morning. Good morning. And welcome to the Unitarian Society of Santa Barbara on this somewhat gloomy, but I think I see the sun trying to come through, Easter morning. Welcome to you here in our physical sanctuary and to all of you out there Zooming into our virtual sanctuary. Wherever you're coming from, we are all one community of seekers here, striving to live with integrity, nurture wonder, and inspire action to transform our world. I am Charla Bergante, and I am the Director of Religious Exploration around here, and I am delighted to serve as your worship associate this morning along with Ken Ralph. And thanks to the miracle of modern technology, our minister, Julia Hamilton, is able to be with us this morning in spite of a positive COVID diagnosis.
Good morning, everyone. I am here in our virtual sanctuary. What better day to be trying something new than on Easter morning? So I am recovering from COVID, but out of an abundance of caution, we're gathering in this new way. So hello to those of you who are there physically, and hello to those of you who are there in the Zoom sanctuary, and I look forward to this service together.
We are also joined by our music director, Matthew Grissett, our accompanist, Heather Levin, organist Kevin Rose, our wonderful chancel choir, and all the folks who work behind the scenes every Sunday to make our services accessible to everyone, no matter where you may be. I'd like to extend a special welcome to any visitors we may have with us today. Please, we ask that you would take a moment to fill out a connection card, either online or in your order of service, and you can drop it in the collection plate or at the welcome table in the courtyard. And stay for a cup of coffee if you're here, a cup of coffee or tea and donuts after the service. And yes, you heard right. There are donuts for everyone today. It's an Easter miracle. There is a lot going on outside of Sunday mornings in the life of our congregation, and I invite you to read your Friday emails and your order of service for details about a number of upcoming events. And I just want to highlight a couple of things this morning. You might notice the really beautiful flowers here on our chancel this morning. These flowers are donated in memory of Pat Kruger, and we want to thank everyone who helped out with the memorial service yesterday and all who have reached out to Pat's family with love and support. She will be missed. This past Wednesday, about, I'd say, 50 congregants or so gathered in Parish Hall for a Passover Seder. It was a beautiful and fun-filled event with wonderful food, terrific songs, and we just want to say thank you to Nancy Beiser and the team of amazing volunteers who made this event happen. Give them a little hand. Our Board of Trustees wants to hear from you about the process of renaming the Jefferson window. All members of the congregation should have received an email this week with a brief survey to fill out. And there will be a table in the courtyard again next Sunday where you can find out more information, ask questions, and share your thoughts. This Friday, just a couple more, this Friday, April 14th at 6:30 p.m., we are hosting a unique live event here at the Unitarian Society, the Gun Etiquette Game Show, an interactive, raucous game revealing the truth about guns in America. Created by Dana Zerzolo, an artist in our congregation whose work you can see currently on display in our front office gallery, this game show is sure to surprise, educate, and spark necessary conversation about the epidemic of gun violence in our midst. And we will have childcare available for this event. Then on next Sunday evening, April 16th at 7 p.m., we are partnering with Congregation B'nai B'rith for a special service for the Holocaust Day of Remembrance. The buildings at B'nai B'rith are currently under construction, so we are glad to be able to welcome their congregation into our sanctuary for this moving and meaningful event. Reverend Julia and members of our music ministry will be participating in this service, and all are welcome. And last, but certainly not least, this morning is our annual Hunt for Justice, an Easter egg hunt that puts our faith into action. Thanks to all of you, we have $400 from our March offering that was collected for this USSB Easter tradition, and our RE kids will be voting with their egg hunt bounty to determine how to distribute this money to support 3 causes they care about: children, animals, and the environment. Come check out the agencies we're supporting and the voting process during coffee hour. And did I mention there would be donuts? I mentioned there would be donuts. There's a donut wall, in fact. That was a lot. So now, I invite you to put aside your mental calendars and to-do lists, settle yourself in your seat, and take a deep breath as I ring our bowl gong to begin our time of worship. May the sound wash over you and quiet your mind.
This morning, we have some help with lighting our chalice. Emily and Percy and Emil are going to give us a hand. These words this morning are a bit of a mishmash of several things I've been reading lately, and I kind of cobbled it together for you. We kindle our chalice this morning in celebration of this day, not yesterday, not tomorrow. May your life take the form of each new day given to you, with possibilities and promises that were never seen before. Let this new day deepen what has already happened, and let it unfold what is surprising, unpredictable, and creative in you. Oh, that's right.
We have one more flame to kindle this morning, and that is our candle of memory for Marjorie Shore. Marjorie has been a member at the Unitarian Society since 1988 and was just 2 months shy of her 100th birthday. We will be holding a service in celebration of her life on Friday, April 28th at 11 a.m. But please join me now in a moment of silence for Marjorie and all those who have made their home here with us for a time and on whose shoulders we rest. Blessings on your journey, Marjorie.
Well, each morning we like to turn our attention each Sunday morning to some of the good things that are happening in the world. And I invite you to take a moment and just think about some good thing that you've experienced or you've seen or you've read in the past week. And something that might actually bring us closer to that kind of beloved world that we strive to create. And once you have that in your mind, I'd like you to not just keep it to yourself. I want you to share it. Write it down on a piece of paper if you want, and you can put it into our collective change jar right here after the service. Or if you're joining us online, enter it into the chat box, whatever it is that was good and positive this week. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors. We're bombarded with bad news all the time. So let's get the word out that there are good things happening as well. And I would like to hold up something that struck me as particularly good that I want to add to our collective change jar. And that is the amazing Wisconsin Supreme Court election results. And this is not Republican and Democrat that I'm talking about, but this is a candidate that stood up for women's reproductive rights and also stood against suppression of voting through extreme, what's it called? Yes. And won by an amazing 11 percentage point. My friends, I think perhaps the tide is turning, and that's good news.
Please rise and bow to your spirit as we sing our opening hymn, number 12, O Life That Maketh All Things New.
It is time to celebrate everyone who has a springtime birthday this month. If you have an April birthday, come on up so we can give you some love. April birthdays. And before we wish all of you a happy birthday, I believe we've got a little video with some April birthdays, so we can run that now.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday to you.
You to say your name and the day you
say your name and the day.
Ooh. Wow. Are we ready? Let's try that again. I'm going to invite all of you to just say your name and the date that you were born, and if you want to say how old you're turning, that's optional. Just your name and your birthday?
Griffin, and April 22nd.
Kirsten, April 23rd.
Mike Risto, 18 years ago.
Lorraine Woodman, on April 24th, I'll be 71.
Ken Ralph, on April 14th, I'll be 72.
Bart Woolery, I'm sad to report for nearly 20 years I've been working on improved Medicare for all, but I'm happy to report that for nearly 2 years we have had Medicare for Bardo, at least.
This is Haven, and she turned 1 yesterday.
Teresa McCracken, I'll turn 66 on the 21st.
Rihanna Rich, April 18th, and I'll be 46. No,
He just came on up. Leo just came on up. May this coming year begin with joy for all of you. May you have friends to laugh with in the good times and lean on in the hard times. May you learn and grow in mind, body, and spirit. And may you continue to share your gifts with us in this community. The world is a richer place with you in it. Happy birthday to all of you. Give them some love. That. It is now the time in the service when we like to invite any children up and anyone else who likes to sit on a rug for a story. And I know there are some children out there, so I'd love to see you all come on up. And I am going to wear a little birthday bonnet that Dylan Madlani made for me this morning, and you will all get a chance to make one of these today too. A little Easter bonnet. I think I said birthday bonnet. Good morning, everyone. Feel free to take a spot on the stairs, too. You all feel so far away, but that's okay. What's your favorite thing about Easter? Any of you? I heard someone say chocolate. I knew that was going to come up. What? Gummy bears? Someone said gummy bears. Someone said flowers. Jasper wants gummy bears too. There are lots of wonderful things to love about Easter. Well, the Christian story of Easter is a story from the Bible about Jesus and the last few weeks of his life. Jesus was a teacher and a holy man who had been traveling in the Middle Eastern country of Judea with his friends and students, meeting with people and telling stories of his ideas about God and how people should treat each other with kindness. Jesus' message of love for everyone and justice for the poor and oppressed was something that a lot of people wanted to hear. And he had an increasing number of followers. However, leaders in the government were worried about what Jesus was saying, especially when he talked about social change. Jesus talked a lot about how different things would be if people let love guide their actions. If people let love guide their actions, rather than just following the rules that the leaders thought were important. The government officials saw all the crowds that showed up to hear Jesus speak, and they were worried. They were worried that he was going to lead a rebellion, and they thought he needed to be stopped. The story goes that one night after sharing a meal, a Passover Seder in fact, one of Jesus's friends turned him in to the government, turned him in. Jesus was sentenced to death in a terrible way because the government thought he was a traitor and they wanted to make an example of him. Of course, Jesus' friends and followers were very, very sad when their beloved teacher died. After he died, the story says that a few of the women who were his friends went to where they thought his body should be, which was a tomb, which was like a cave and had a big rock in front of it. They wanted to give his body a proper burial, but they had a strange experience when they arrived at the tomb. The tomb had been opened. A large stone rolled away from the entrance, and it was empty. Jesus' body was not there. After that, several of his friends thought they saw him and talked to him, even though they knew he had died, and his friends became convinced that he had come back to life after being killed. The Christian celebration of Easter is the celebration of the day that Christians believe Jesus came back to life, that he was resurrected. Now, most Unitarian Universalists don't believe that Jesus actually came back to life and went walking around and talking to people after he died. But the idea of resurrection, the idea that something that feels dead and gone can come back to life in a new way, that is a powerful idea that is still important to many people today. After all, think about when you remember someone you loved who has died, and you keep learning from what they taught you, then, in a way, they're still alive within you. We keep people alive in our hearts and our minds all the time, even after they are gone from the world. And the idea of resurrection can be found in nature too, right? During the winter, in many parts of the world, and even some here, trees lose their leaves and flowers die back during the winter months. Snow covers some places, and then in the spring, the plants that look dead come back to life again. If you've been up in our hills anytime recently, you've seen all the dead and brown plants from the fall and winter put out new leaves and flowers, and how green the grasses are this spring. It's all come back to life. And then, for thousands of years, people around the world from all kinds of traditions have celebrated the idea that life comes again after things looked like they were dead. Ancient Europeans believed in a goddess called Ostara, or Istre, who was the spring goddess of new life and growing things. Eggs, which hatch into little chicks, and rabbits, who are well known for making lots of little rabbits, were sacred symbols of spring and rebirth. When long ago Christians arrived in Europe and wanted the people there to convert to Christianity, they combined the local spring traditions involving eggs and bunnies and sweet treats into their celebration of the resurrection of Jesus. Because both the Christian story and the spring celebration of the goddess of Istra are about new life coming out after death. That's our theme, right? New life coming out after death. So at Easter, as Unitarian Universalists, we celebrate all the ways that life carries on and grows and changes, and how love and life find a way to survive even through hard times. Just the other night, just Friday night, this past Friday night, at our monthly family pizza church, we read a story about the power of love and how love can, transform and come out and change the world. And when we finished the story, we all shouted, "Love is powerful," right here in this sanctuary. And we loved the way the sound resonated in this sanctuary. And we wanted everyone to hear that message, so we used our loudest outside voices. And it was powerful. And so I want to bring up Jasper and Georgia and Chris, if they want to come up, to help me to lead you all in that same shout this morning. You ready for this, Jasper? Jasper's going to help us. Will you count to 3 for us when I give you the microphone, Jasper? Okay. Okay. Jasper's going to count to 3, and then we're all going to shout in our loudest outdoor voices. You don't want to? Love is powerful. Will you just shout without the microphone?
You can shout.
Yeah, you got this, Jasper. Ready? Help me count to 3. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Love is powerful. Should they do it one more time, Jasper? Jasper thinks you should do it one more time. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3.
Love is powerful.
Thank you, everyone. Oh, no. It is powerful. Thank you all so much. And now it's time to sing our children out for their activities and on to hunt for justice in our name. Thank you all. I believe we're inviting Julia up now to lead us in a time for.
Yes, good morning, everyone, and thank you, Charla and Ken, and everyone who is there in the physical sanctuary. And it is wonderful to be together on this Easter morning. I invite you now to take a breath, to settle yourself in your chair or your pew or wherever you find yourself this morning. Maybe drop your shoulders or hold your hands open, get in touch with your breathing and your body. Pause for just a moment to reconnect to the ground of our being, the earth under us, the air around us, the sky above us, the universe beyond us. On this Easter morning, when the mist makes the garden damp and the sun just begins to peek out onto the green hills, we remember that joy and sorrow are woven fine, and we open our hearts to make room for all the grief and gratitude that comes with being human. So let us enter into a moment of quiet reflection, grounded in love, inspired by wisdom, and fueled by hope.
Well, you know you're living in paradise when each time you climb into your car, you find yourself choosing not the quickest route to your destination, but the most beautiful one. And one of my favorite routes and drives is the one I take from my house on the Mesa to Gold's Gym over at La Cumbra and State Street. There's no question that the fastest way to get to the gym from my place is to go down Carrillo, get on the freeway, and get off at La Cumbra, and you're there. It's only a matter of minutes. But that's not the route that I usually take. Instead, I cruise down Cliff Drive to Hendry's Beach and I'll look over to my left and I'll check out the tides, see if there's any waves, maybe even swing through the parking lot. And then I'll drive up into Hope Ranch and I'll pause at the bluff right at the top of the hill and check out the islands. You can see them all at once. Then I'll continue on Marina Drive, winding through the overhanging trees until I get to La Cumbre Country Club and the golf course. And there, surrounded by emerald green grass and towering palm trees, with the Santa Ynez Mountains looming in the background, sits this gorgeous little shimmering blue lake. And every time I drive by that lake, I catch my breath. It's just so beautiful. And I say this despite my disdain for golf and golf courses. Right? Well, about 7 or 8 years ago, maybe longer, that little lake began to struggle to stay full of water. And by the time Easter rolled around each year, the shimmering blue turned into this brackish brown color, and weeds began to emerge from the surface of the water. And by June, the water would disappear altogether until the winter rains came, only to disappear again by summer of the next year. Well, about 3 years ago, the water never returned. What was once a lake was now a permanently dry, barren lake bed. The long drought had finally killed my little lake. And though I still drove through Hope Ranch on my way to the gym, I mourned the loss of one of my favorite vistas. But then, about a month ago, while making this drive, I felt my breath catch. And I looked to my right, and in amazement, that little lake was miraculously brimming with shimmering blue water once again. Obviously, the recent heavy rains had brought the lake that I thought was dead back to life. And I guess one could say that this lake was resurrected. And further, you could say it was resurrected by showers from above, in fact. You know, for several years, showers has dominated my life. You see, I was deeply involved with this project, which provides free showers to people experiencing homelessness. And the project was founded by a couple of Christian ministers who named it Showers of Blessing. And those words came from the Bible, from the book of Ezekiel, chapter 34, verses 26 and 27, and I want to read those words to you. I will make them and the places all around my hill a blessing, and I will cause showers to come down in their season. There shall be showers of blessing, and the tree of the field shall yield her fruit, and the earth shall yield her increase, and they shall be safe in their land. Well, for quite a while working on this project, I was really put off by the overtly religious nature of the name. I'm a Unitarian after all, right? But after witnessing the many lives that were transformed by this simple act of love and caring, I concluded that this name was perfect. It was perfect. And this is amazing. The perfection was borne out to me again just this last Friday. I was taking a break from writing this reflection, and I went down to the Goodwill store to rummage about, kill some time, when this tall, handsome fellow came up to me and he said, "Ken, do you remember me?" And it dawned on me that this was David, one of our shower guests from back in 2017 and 2018. And David and I had hung out together many times in Alameda Park while he and others waited their turn to take a shower at the trailer across the street at Our Lady of Sorrows. Well, alcohol and drugs took a heavy toll on David. He was constantly getting into fights and usually getting the worst of it in these fights. But I saw something fundamentally good in David, and we became friends. Eventually, he was convicted of assault and sent to jail, and I lost track of him, as with so many others that I made friends with in Alameda Park. And now, here he was, sober for almost 2 years, making $40 an hour as a union sheet metal worker, and he was just beaming. And then, this is the incredible part, he opened his arms and gave me a big hug. And he just simply said, "Thanks, thanks." It was like suddenly seeing that bone-dry lake bed filled with shimmering blue water. Well, my 5 years as a volunteer director of this wonderful project was one of the best experiences of my life. But as with all things, eventually my involvement came to an end. As the project grew, the kind of leader required was one who actually enjoyed spreadsheets and fundraising and managing employees. I'm always been more of a visionary type guy. That never appealed to me, so I stepped aside. Well, that was almost 2 years ago. I can't believe it, almost 2 years ago. And I've got to admit that I've been struggling to discover what my next calling might be. I mean, in some ways, I'm beginning to feel a little like that dry lake bed, awaiting the next heavy rains, but not knowing when they may come, right? So I'm left in an uncomfortable place for a Unitarian, relying on faith. Faith that there will be showers of blessing. And my next challenge will be revealed. Right? And perhaps I too will once again be filled with shimmering blue water. Well, I might be pressing my luck here, but I'd like to end with another excerpt from the Bible. And this is from the book of Revelations. The world of the past is gone. Behold, I am making all of creation new. Well, now it's on to some business. Thank you for that. Every Sunday, when we have our collection, we give a portion of what we receive to a good cause in our community. This month, we are featuring Alternatives to Violence Project as the recipient of your generosity. And you can read about it. There's a full page in your order of service about the great work that they're doing in the prisons. So please give generously. And Please join me in reciting our affirmation of gratitude and giving. Let us be grateful when we are able to give, for many do not. And let us be grateful for those who share their gifts with us, for we are enriched by their giving. And let us be grateful even for our needs, so that we may learn from the generosity of others.
Before we start our offertory, I would like us to give a warm welcome to our guest drummer today, Kevin Winard. Some of you may recognize him. He played with us last Christmas Eve during the jazz service, so we're grateful to have him back.
So thank you, choir. Thank you, choir, and hello to everyone. I would like to share two poems with you this morning on Easter. The first by E.E. Cummings. I thank you, God, for this amazing day. I thank you, God, for this amazing day, for the leaping greenly spirits of trees and a blue true dream of sky, and for everything which is natural, which is infinite, which is yes. I who have died am alive again today, and this is the sun's birthday. This is the birthday of life and of love and wings, and of the gay, great happening illimitably earth. How should tasting, touching, hearing, seeing, breathing, any lifted from the no of all nothing, human merely being, doubt unimaginable you? Now the ears of my ears awake, and now the eyes of my eyes are opened. The second poem is by John Bannister Tabb, and it's titled Evolution. Out of the dark, a shadow, then a spark. Out of the cloud, a silence, then a lark. Out of the heart, a rapture, then a pain. Out of the dead, cold ashes, life again. Now the ears of my ears are awake and the eyes of my eyes are opened, says the writer E.E. Cummings in his poem of great-hearted gratitude for everything which is natural, which is infinite, which is yes. Thanks to E.E. Cummings, I think of Easter as the holiday of yes. That poem does such a splendid job of evoking the feeling of Easter morning, the way I imagine Easter sunrise service wants to feel, the celebration of a new day, the shout of joy for the great illimitable happening of life. Which is a little bit funny because I've never actually been to an Easter sunrise service. Now, how many of you have? Now, I can see the congregation video up, so if you can raise your hand, I can see how many of you have been to an Easter sunrise service in your life, or you can type it into the chat and let me know. I've heard my colleagues talk about sunrise services, about how much they love them, and also how cold it can be at 5:45 on an April morning in New England, for example, with the snow still on the ground. And I've been to sunrise celebrations for other occasions, but I've never been to an Easter morning sunrise service. I didn't grow up in a Christian church, so for most of my life, Easter was about something else. It was a spring festival with the egg hunt and the bunnies and the chocolate. The stories about Jesus were something that I would learn only through friends, or later in life when I started taking religious studies classes in college. So I've come slowly to an understanding of the Christian story of Easter. It's not an easy story to understand. In the biblical text, you'll find the story of Jesus' final days, and like so many biblical stories, it's told in 4 different voices with slightly different version of events in each of the 4 Gospels. And over the years, I've enjoyed diving into these texts with you on Easter morning as we work together to understand their enduring legacy, approaching them not as literal truth, but rather as wisdom stories that have grown and changed with time and translation, valuable because they illuminate something of the human spirit in our quest for understanding the holy. And ever since William Ellery Channing preached back in 1819 that being a Unitarian meant approaching biblical text with a rational mind as well as an open heart, a story is to be understood not as the literal word of God, but through the circumstances and intention of the human authors who wrote them, our tradition has given us the freedom to revisit these ancient texts with modern eyes. But this year you'll notice I went with poetry instead of readings from biblical sources. This year I'm interested not so much in the historical text of the story, but rather in the feeling of Easter, the hopeful orientation of the heart, in uncovering the joy embedded in this complicated story of death and rebirth. I'm interested in what John Bannister Tabb said in that poem, that somehow, year after year, we are able to find out of the dead, cold ashes life again. And if you are here sifting through the ashes, looking for life again, you are in good company. If you are here with a spring in your step and a wildflower photo on your cell phone, you are in good company. If you are here with a curious mind about the concept of resurrection, you are in good company. If you are here because you're hoping to find a way to roll away the heavy stone from your heart, you are in good company. We arrive at this point, this Easter morning, from many different places, but together we can orient ourselves toward joy, toward that yes that E.E. Cummings named. I have to take just a moment and orient myself toward the power cord of my computer, which somehow forgot to be turned on this morning, and I want to make sure I don't lose my own power as I speak to you. Just a moment. There we go. There's a metaphor in there somewhere for a future sermon. A few weeks ago, I heard this idea that's been rattling around in my head ever since. It was from an Episcopal priest named Martin Smith, who spoke of the Easter story of resurrection as living under the authority of the future, not the past. Living under the authority of the future. That is to say, the resurrection story is not about returning things to the way they were before tragedy, before loss. It's not about bringing Jesus back to life so he can continue on the same path as before. The story is not about the way things end, but rather it invites us into a place of imagination about where things could go from here. When their teacher was killed, when his followers lost their prophet who talked about the power of ordinary people, who inspired them with the idea that love could conquer fear, when the man they believed would lead them to liberation, died a horrible death, it was a dark moment. Everything they had worked for seemed crushed. The better world they thought was coming suddenly seemed so much farther away. I don't think we have to look too far to find moments when we might have felt like that, when we saw the progress of our lifetime's work crumble, when the violence of the hour seemed crushing. And when it came to that point, his followers had a choice. They could melt back into the world as it was, gather for secret reunions from time to toast what could have been. They could have let grief swallow them up along with their dreams. Or they could find a way to resurrection, the rekindling of hope. They could wake up one morning after crying all night and realize that it was not, in fact, Jesus' job to make the world a better and more compassionate place after all, but instead the work lived in them. One way to read the story of the resurrection is that violence and trauma are not the most powerful forces in the world and only have the power to trap us in the past if we let them. Life, the force of life itself, the sunrise, the coming of spring, the resurgence of green after the snows of winter, life, that evolutionary forward movement, is uncrushable. Embracing resurrection reminds us that no matter what, that great grand yes cannot be stopped. And not only that life always resurges after loss, but that is a good thing. That is a joyful thing. That is a thing to place your faith in. It seems like a good story for this moment when we are just past the 3-year mark since the pandemic started, and here I am preaching to you on Zoom, still adapting, still learning new things each and every week. We are living under the authority of the future right now, right here, in this way of being together. We are looking for resurrection, not to the way we lived before, but to a new life together, bringing forward with us the lessons we've learned from the past. Resurrection, the rekindling of possibility, seems like a good story for this moment when we are wondering what the fate of our nation will be, knowing that the ways we've lived in the past have never fully expressed the promise of what we could be in the future. We should be living under the authority of the future of our nation, informed by its history but not trapped by it, looking to expand that dream of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, not restrict it to a privileged few. We are charged in this moment with resurrecting the concept of democracy, asking not what made us great in the past, but what we need to bring with us into the future so that we can be better for generations to come. Resurrection is a good story for this moment when we consider the climate crisis and the fact that we have to allow our life of limitless extraction to die so that we can create a more sustainable way of living from the ashes, sometimes literally from the ashes here in Santa Barbara. We are being challenged to believe in the possibility of resurrection over and over again. To believe that things are not hopeless, that renewal is possible, that joy is not a lost cause. We are being confronted with death and loss and grief in 1,000 ways, individually and as a society. And the only way to survive and thrive in these times is to allow beauty and the joy of life to take up space alongside the trauma. We have to get in touch with that deep and fundamental longing for life itself, to orient ourselves toward the future, to dream again of what we might create and build together, not just what we have to fight and tear down. I don't know about you, but the pandemic sort of shrunk my muscles for dreaming big. It seemed too risky, too chaotic, too downright foolish to make plans bigger than what I might accomplish in a week or maybe a month at most. These past 3 years have shrunk our ability to gather over leisurely dinners and hatch ideas for great things, to practice dreaming together late into the evening or early in the morning over coffee. It seemed fruitless for so many years to work on long-term strategies when everything could be shut down in an instant, when survival was day to day. I don't know if you read those newspaper articles that reported that people were wondering if it even made sense to have children, because how could we know what kind of world to leave them? That fatalism, that doomsday sense of the nearness of the end. This is still floating around us. Martin Smith, when he talked about living under the authority of the future, he went on to say that his concept of religion, the practice of religion as a whole, was about being pulled toward something. The practice of co-creating the future, not just replicating rituals and practices of the past. In his words, he talks about co-creating with God, but in my own words, I think about co-creating with life itself. We Unitarian Universalists, we've rejected Calvinism and predestination and the passive unfolding of a destiny already determined and out of our control. We embrace a definition of religion that demands that we step up to the plate and take a swing. And Easter reminds us that it's time to stop punting and swing for the fences. Religion at its best invites us to dream about the kind of world we want to live in and work to make that world a reality. It's not enough for me to imagine on my own. I need others who help sharpen and strengthen that vision with me. Resurrection does not happen in isolation. It happens only when we bear witness to one another. See and celebrate the new day together to remind each other that the future is still unfolding. Which is why I think Easter endures. Not because Jesus rose from the dead, but rather because there is a longing inside each of us to believe that we can rise again too, that no matter what happens, no matter the death and destruction or private losses or collective devastations, the addictions, the old stories that try to pull us back into the past, back into the tomb, we long to believe that the forward pull of life is stronger than any of that. This longing for life is in our bones. It is an evolutionary longing, an understanding that the way this, all of this, life, the universe, and everything, the way this works is a forward motion, and that the genius of humanity is that we can imagine a world on the other side of heartbreak. We can dream it before we become it. As the song the choir just sang in the last verse says, we know we can't go back again to the world that we were living in because we're dreaming with our eyes wide open. The eyes of my eyes are opened. We are lifted from the no of all nothing. We have emerged, evolved from the vastness of space and stardust, a lark out of the silence. A lark out of the silence, singing into this new day. And here we are, a living yes. And that is something to celebrate. Alleluia. Happy Easter to you all. Let's sing together one more time.
Please remain standing, if you will. As we close our Easter service this morning, I can't help but think of Pat Kruger and Marjorie Shore, who lived these full lives and are no longer with us, and of the privilege that each of us in this room have to live another day and make it new and make it our own and make it better. May the light of love shine upon you, out from within you, be gracious unto you, and bring you peace. For this is the day we are given. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Amen.
Now let us call out a blessing. Call out a blessing, call out a blessing, call out a blessing, call postlude with Kevin Rose.
Hey everyone, it's been a while